Learn to choose your battles. How to use emotional intelligence to become a sophisticated communicator. Has there ever been a time when you walked away from a conversation feeling sorry because something that you said wasn't quite right? Have you ever regretted a quick response you gave someone, then you realized you misunderstood what they meant? How about this? Have you ever made a costly mistake that took you a while to recover from because you acted impulsively? Welcome to this episode of Brains and Baubles Live. This video is going to help you to think about how you communicate. Today, we're tackling a challenge that many of us know all too well: the turmoil that arises from conflict and unsophisticated communication. I'm sure you've been in a conversation where you desperately wanted to bridge the gap, but instead, what you said seemed to make the gap even wider. That's the kind of frustration that can keep you up at night. But guess what? I've got a powerful solution in store for you, a solution that can turn those communication nightmares into harmonious connections. The catch is, though, you have to stick around to the end, and I will unveil this transformative process. So, for those of you who grapple with conflicts that just seem unsolvable and conversations that you feel lost in, this episode is your beacon of hope. Get ready to discover a way out of the chaos and into understanding. So let's get started. Protecting your emotions is paramount to good spiritual, mental, and physical health. Learn to determine if an argument is even worth your emotional expenditure. Negative attitudes and feelings of helplessness can lead to chronic stress. They upset your hormone balance. They lead to negative feelings that deplete the happiness chemicals in your brain. They harm your immune system and potentially reduce your lifespan. Can you imagine just cutting your life down by arguing and having conflicts, or just not knowing the right way to communicate? So, from this article in the University of Minnesota, I learned about how your health can be impacted by stress and anxiety that come from conflicts. So, your emotional, mental, and physical health, they all work together. So, if you're a person that always finds yourself in a conflict or a debate, or it seems like everywhere you go, somebody is trying you, there is a way that you can choose how and when to address these issues. Maybe you yearn for just one day that you don't have to check somebody for disrespecting you. But did you know that that disrespect could come from something that you're doing, a way that you're showing up? So knowing who you are actually changes what you consider to be disrespect or what you consider to be respectful. So conflict causes stress, anxiety, and hurt. Because, every time you have a conflict with someone, you are pulling on emotions. And unless you're trying to find a mutual agreement, then it's nothing but stress. Okay. And that can hurt. You say things that hurt. Someone says something to you that hurt, or just the fact that you're in a conflict with this person at all can be hurtful. But you can improve your communication and improve your health. Okay. You can turn yourself into a thoughtful and responsible, intelligent communicator by learning which battles are even worth the effort. Let me tell you something that a lot of people don't learn until later in life, even if they learn it at all. You need to learn how to determine when you should stay in a fight or when you should walk away. Every battle is not yours, but some of them are, because you initiate them. You get to choose. So if I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose for peace. And you should want that in your life too. You have control of your environment, so you can determine whether it's going to be stressful, full of conflict and negative talk, or if it's going to be the type of environment that's going to help you move things forward. Your level of engagement in most arguments or disagreements or even conflicts, or shall I say beefs, can be decided by this one concept that I'm going to share with you, okay? You can use this one concept to decide if a matter, in just a short period of time, in just a matter of moments, if you should assert yourself, or if you should set somebody straight, or if you should just walk away. Most times when people have conflict, the conflict is about something that means little or nothing to the grand scheme of life. Some disagreements go on, and they go on so long that people forget why they even are arguing. Before the end of this episode, I'll share with you this one idea that will keep you from wasting your emotions and energy on disagreements and petty arguments, and the need to want to check somebody every day. So first thing first, let's examine your self-control. And examining your self-control starts with self-awareness. How you show up in situations and how you control yourself determines how people receive you. So if you're always showing up somewhere angry, people are prepared for your angry person. I mean, they have on a wall, they have on there, protect, they know what they're going to say if you come at them wrong, because you have set up this precedent. If you come into situations and you're always negative, some people are not even going to want to be bothered with you, because negative self-talk, or negative talk period, doesn't help anything. And it brings the room down, and it zaps energy from the person you're talking to, and it just perpetuates negativity and bad outcomes. And another way that you can show up that actually helps to foster poor communication and cause conflict is if you're passive. You better learn to stick up for yourself. No one can read your mind. So being passive doesn't get you what you want. It doesn't even add value to relationships, because the people in relationships are not getting the authentic you, the real you, the whole you. So if you're passive, then you know what? You may as not even show up, because you're not bringing anything. Okay. And what's even worse than being passive is being passive aggressive. That means not only are you not participating, not adding value, you're also trying to throw something in the mix to make things worse. Instead of communicating effectively, you do little things to hope that someone gets that you're upset, or hope that someone sees that they need to do something for you. Listen, closed mouths don't get fed, and no one can read your mind. Remember those two things, and that'll help you from being passive aggressive. Okay. So, but constant conflict, though, like I said earlier, it leads to health issues. It leads to high blood pressure. It leads to more cortisol in your belly area. And, as we get to be a certain age and as our bodies are changing, the last thing you need is more weight when you're already going through things, you're eating differently, and your workouts don't work the same. Listen, you need to eliminate stress. I do every day. I work to eliminate stress and conflict and poor communication, because all of that also translates into behavioral issues. If you're always angry, that leads to more frustration. Do you throw things? Do you cuss your kids out and then say, "Oh, I'm sorry"? Do you say the first thing that comes out of your mouth and you try to hit below the belt? Those are all behavioral issues. But behavioral issues can also lead to more health issues. If you're drinking more, if you're eating the wrong things, if you're smoking more, whatever you're doing more because you're having an emotional situation, is definitely bad behavior, okay? But the most important thing that people get pushed away from, let me rephrase that. The most important issue that conflict and strife pulls you away from is your relationship with God. I have been in a situation where my emotions weren't handled and I'm all over the place. And maybe I feel like everyone is coming at me and the things just not tracking like I want them to track. And then I've drawn away from God. I haven't even had the mustered up the energy to pray. And it's deep when you can't form the words to pray. I will never allow my emotions or outside factors damage my relationship with God. And my communication with God is the most important thing. I'm not going to let anyone keep my mouth shut in that area. That is the time when you need to open your mouth and communicate the best way you can immediately is in your relationship and your communication with God, because he's going to help you handle your anger. He's going to help you figure things out. He's going to help you calm your temper so that you can deal with situations the right way. Okay. And, one of the first things in self awareness that helps you create an environment of peace without conflict and strife is to develop the ability to set boundaries and to also be vulnerable. And that all depends on the nature of the relationship you're in. So I'll describe several different types of relationships because the way that you communicate and the boundaries that you set and the way that you handle conflict are different in each one. So the relationship that has the least amount of weight is what I call a transactional relationship. So that could be a work relationship too. Is any time that there is an effort or a product or something that is given in exchange for money. So for me, the most transactional relationships that I really find that I have to kind of really like say, hey, how's this going? Is usually in restaurants. And then you got to do that with tact because you don't want a little gift in your food, right? But the point that I'm making is those are the ones that you don't need to be as vulnerable. These are one time or infrequent transactions where the relationship isn't really fully developed and there's no need to develop a relationship. So if there is a conflict or if something isn't right, you can address it immediately and you don't have to be so soft and fluffy when you do that. Okay, I get that. You still should do it with tact and respect, no matter who the person is, whether they are the server or there's somebody cleaning or somebody washing your car. Still treat people with respect because that's a reflection of you, not of them. But relationships with friends, sometimes those relationships, you really have to set up boundaries. There are some friendships where you can get the energy pulled from you because the friend is needy or the situations are different. And you have to set up boundaries to protect your own emotions. But you can be vulnerable, but to a certain degree. Like, I never believe in telling anybody everything about you because it really doesn't matter. The things that you should be sharing with other people are things that build the relationship, that help someone, or push an initiative forward. Okay. If you're just wanting to be relatable, there's still levels to communicating with people who are your friends or you want to become friends with. Now, the most important relationships where boundaries and vulnerability really need to be worked out, and you really need to examine yourself so you can protect these relationships, are family and intimate relationships with your spouse. I'm telling you, you're going to bite your tongue. You're going to want to say things that and not say them for the sake of the relationship. The process that I'm going to share with you later is going to help you manage how you deal with conflict in family and love relationships, because sometimes you need to address the matter later, right? Until people calm down. Sometimes you're just going to have to bite the bullet and not force your a point across to the other person because it's not helping the situation. And sometimes you just need to be quiet so that you can see the other person's point of view. And then you realize, like, oh, maybe it's not about me. I'll talk about that. A lot of times we get into conflicts because we have assumptions. We make assumptions about what people know about what we want. We make assumptions about other people's capabilities. We even make assumptions about other people's willingness to even want to participate in a conversation or a debate with us about a particular topic. And, a lot of times that's because we've had poor expectations or other people have had expectations that they shouldn't have. And now it's caused a conflict. See, your expectations should be based on how you view yourself. So if you don't take time to become self-aware, then you don't understand what your triggers are. You don't understand your strengths. You haven't determined what your weaknesses are. But let me tell you, if you have bad attitude and negative talk all the time, then you're going to have Other people's experience of you influence how they interact with you. Okay. So you can tell by past experiences with people whether or not you've been received in a positive or negative way. Now, if you've been received in a negative way, you still have time to work on you so your next interactions aren't going to be negative. Okay. Because other people's perceptions, again, and the way that they treat you are based on their experience of you. And if they didn't have a good experience, they're not looking for the next experience to be a good experience. Okay. You can change their mind. Okay. So sometimes, and this is my adage, you need to walk away. You know, debating with foolish or ignorant people is just not worth it. It's not worth the risks to your emotions, the risk to you having to pull out some hands. And, you know, my hands are lethal weapons. I'm not really saying that loud because I haven't used them in a bit, but you don't know how some people are or what they have. So engaging in conflict with foolish or ignorant people, it's not worth it. And that don't make you no punk. I'm from Highland Park, Michigan. There's no way that I could not stick up for myself even before, and this is how I learned emotional intelligence, even before I knew what emotional intelligence was. You just cannot allow people to treat you anyway, but there is a way that you can interact with those people who are ignorant and foolish and just want to do something crazy. You can walk away. Sometimes there is a topic or a situation where you can't convince me of your point of view. You're not going to convince me, and I'm not going to convince you. I'm not even going to try. A good girlfriend of mine says of conflicts when it's like something where it's just not going to be a positive outcome because the other person isn't listening or willing to budge in any way. Her favorite phrase, I ain't got time. And it's not about correct English, it's about the sentiment. I ain't got time. I ain't got time to be wasting my emotions, and I don't have time to just argue with someone, especially when they're not listening. Okay. So you must set reasonable boundaries, though. The boundaries are for you. The boundaries are to keep you focused. The boundaries are to help you wrangle in your emotions. Your boundaries that you set are to help you to be a better person. These boundaries aren't set to keep other people in line because you can't control other people. And once you realize that boundaries are healthy, you will set up boundaries that can take you to the next level. And when you set up boundaries, it's important to weave vulnerability in with the plan because you don't want to just cut yourself off. You don't want to just cut yourself off from the people who love you and the people who want to be around you just so you can make improvement. You want to do both at the same time, and it's possible. What I'm about to share with you right now is the key to being sophisticated and being a communicator and not having conflicts and minimizing ones when you do come into disagreements with someone and knowing when to walk away. This one sophisticated process is going to help you to create an environment of peace. It's going to help you to ensure emotional freedom so that you can dream. I mean, if you're always in turmoil and conflict, when are you going to have time to dream? When are you going to have time to plan your next move? This process is called the self-gut check. And the self-gut check is something that you do internally. You could do it at the drop of a dime. It can change a situation in a moment, and it can strengthen and help you to prioritize the right relationships in your life. And you know, I created the self-gut check so that you can check yourself and use logic in the midst of a conflict instead of using your emotions. Because if you go on emotions, you're liable to say something you can't take back. You're liable to do something that has dire consequences later and for a long time. And you are liable to ruin relationships. So I have a chapter in my book dedicated to the self-gut check. My book is called Brains and Baubles, Do What Works for You. And I call the self gut check the SCG method. SCG for self gut check. And what it does, it allows you to ask yourself a couple of questions. It's like looking into an emotional mirror. So when you take a moment to think about how you're doing, especially if you're thinking about plans or you're thinking about your performance, you want to be able to assess how you're doing and also how you're doing emotionally in that moment. Okay, how are you feeling and what are you feeling? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling triggered in some way? Does this situation remind you of something from the past? What are you feeling and how do you deal with it? What are you doing about it? The self gut check will help you understand whether or not this is a situation where you need to be assertive or you need to walk away. With using the self gut check, you use logic to determine what move to make, not your emotions. Because your emotions can have you doing something crazy and something that you might regret. The self gut check helps you determine what to say or if you should even address the issue at all. Even if it's worth your time, the self gut check will help you. So you're basically asking yourself, am I on the right track? I use the self gut check for long term goals, for short term goals. I use the self gut check in communication, period, but especially in conflict, in things that happen right at the moment that you weren't expecting, and your emotions would tend to be high. You can use the self gut check to bring yourself back down and bring yourself back to reality. You ask yourself, am I being true to who I am and what I really want? It's a way to make sure you're being real with yourself and making the best choices for your life, the choices that match your goals and your values. So you can think of it as your personal GPS for life. The self gut check is the key to being a sophisticated communicator. Okay. So now that you have the tools, you can develop your skills as a sophisticated communicator. You are empowered to choose your battles. Thank you for joining us today on this enlightening episode of Brains and Baubles Live. I hope you found inspiration in our discussion today. If you're hungry for more knowledge and ready to take your personal growth to the next level, my Sophisticated Empowerment course is waiting for you. It's your gateway to unlocking your true potential and achieving your dreams. I mean, that's what we're all here for. It's for planning and achieving your dreams, using your communication skills to get what you need to get where you're going. So if you want to know more, enroll and embark on this transformative journey, simply click the link below in the video description. Remember, your first step towards change is action. Seize this opportunity. Empower yourself today. As we wrap up, keep in mind that your potential is limitless and your journey is just beginning. Stay tuned for more empowering content. Until next time, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep reaching for the stars. Goodbye.